The shattered silence. The galaxy was calm that night, if such a thing could ever be said about endless space. Stars burned quietly, planets turned slowly, and trade routes of the Dominion stretched like glowing rivers across the void. For thousands of years, the Dominion ruled without fear. They had armies so large that entire species bent their knees before them. They had fleets so powerful that no rebellion lasted more than a week. The Dominion was called eternal, unbreakable and everlasting. But eternity ended in silence. On the far edge of a forgotten sector, a lonely outpost floated above a dying star. The soldiers stationed there were bored. They watched the scanners, drank their spiced drinks, and laughed at the idea of danger. For who would dare challenge the Dominion? Who was foolish enough to strike against the empire that ruled half the galaxy? Then the silence was broken. One operator sat up straighter as a light appeared on his screen. At first he thought it was a glitch, a single object moving from deep space. No transponder, no signal, only a shape moving with purpose. He frowned, adjusted the scanners, and called his commander. "It's probably a smuggler," the commander said with a laugh. But his voice grew quieter as the reading became clear. The object was massive, larger than a Dominion dreadnought. It carried no Dominion code, no familiar markings. It was a stranger, and yet it moved like a predator. The crew of the outpost gathered. Through the long-range telescope, they caught the first glimpse. A battleship, black against the stars, its hull scarred with age yet glowing with strange lights. It moved slowly, silently, as if it had all the time in the universe. The Dominion commander whispered words no one expected to hear. "It's human." For a moment, no one spoke. The word hung in the air like a ghost from the past. Humans had been gone for centuries, banished, hunted, and erased from records. The Dominion told everyone that humanity was extinct. But here, drifting closer, was proof that the story was a lie. The commander barked orders. A squadron of Dominion patrol ships launched toward the mysterious vessel. Their wings cut across the stars like silver knives. They approached with confidence, weapons locked. The humans could not return, they told themselves. Not now, not ever, but confidence turned to fear in the blink of an eye. Without firing a single warning, the Terran Battleship came alive. Hidden weapons opened like the eyes of a monster. Beams of impossible energy tore through the patrol fleet. One by one, Dominion ships vanished into fire and silence. The outpost crew watched in shock. A fleet of 10 ships destroyed in less than a minute. Their signals cut off like candles in a storm. The silence returned, deeper than before. No one laughed, no one moved. The Terran Battleship did not chase them. It did not send a message. It simply turned and continued forward. Its slow, steady movement more terrifying than any weapon. Word spread quickly. The Dominion outpost sent desperate reports to the Central Command. The message traveled through the Empire like fire in dry grass. "The Terrans have returned." The words repeated on every channel. Admirals argued. Governors panicked. Some refused to believe. Others remembered the old stories. Stories of human cunning, of human rage, of wars that nearly toppled the Dominion before. In hidden corners of the galaxy, slaves whispered to one another. If the humans had returned, maybe freedom had returned too. If even one battleship survived, perhaps more waited in the shadows. Perhaps the Dominion was not eternal. Perhaps its silence was about to shatter. And aboard the black battleship, a man stood at the command deck, his eyes cold, his face marked with years of exile. He watched the Dominion patrol wreckage drift into the void. He gave no smile, no joy, only quiet determination. His voice carried through the ship like iron. "We begin," he said. And so the galaxy trembled. The silence of the Dominion cracked. For the first time in centuries, the empire that ruled without fear felt the shadow of fear itself. And it came, not from within but from the return of mankind. The Terran Battleship moved on, one ship against an empire. But sometimes one is enough to shatter the silence of eternity. The first strike. The Dominion did not sleep. The moment the outpost's desperate signal reached the central command, fleets were mobilized. The admirals laughed at the idea of one Terran ship, but their laughter was weak, hiding the unease in their eyes. The humans were supposed to be extinct, and yet here was a ship that fought like a nightmare from their forgotten past. Orders were given. The nearest Dominion fleet was told to intercept and destroy. 1,000 ships were prepared, from sleek interceptors to massive dreadnoughts. They gathered like a storm, covering the stars in lines of silver and gold. The Dominion believed in numbers. Numbers had always crushed rebellion. Numbers had always silenced resistance. But against the Terran battleship, numbers meant nothing. The Dominion fleet approached with discipline. Commanders shouted orders, formations tightened, wings of fighters darted forward, their engines glowing. Bright, missiles locked, cannons ready, shields raised. The alien admirals sat back in their command chairs and declared, "End this farce." Inside the Terran battleship, silence ruled. Human officers moved with calm precision. Their faces showed no fear. They had trained for this moment. Their ship was not new, but it was perfect. Every system worked as if it were alive. Every weapon was designed for a single purpose: destruction, the war. Human captain stood at the center of the bridge. His hands clasped behind his back, his eyes studied the tactical screen. The Dominion fleet looked like a swarm of insects around a flame. He gave only 2 words: fire freely, and the storm began. The Terran ship unleashed its first strike, a beam of pure energy, white and sharp. It tore across the void and sliced through 3 Dominion cruisers at once. The ships exploded into fragments, their shields useless against human technology. Before the shock faded, missiles launched from hidden bays. They darted like hunters, weaving past enemy defenses. Every impact was followed by fire. Every second, another Dominion ship died. The alien commander screamed orders: "Surround it. Crush it with numbers. Do not let it escape." But the battleship did not escape. It moved with terrifying grace, too fast for something so massive. Every turn predicted enemy fire. Every shot landed with deadly accuracy. Fighters swarmed it, hundreds at once. They darted close, hoping to overwhelm with speed. But the Terran ship responded with cold efficiency. Turrets spun, lasers carved through fighter wings. Explosions lit the dark like fireworks. Out of hundreds, only a handful limped away. Their pilots screamed in panic. "The humans, this is impossible." For the Dominion admirals, panic became fear. They watched their perfect formations break apart. Ships collided. Captains begged for orders. But no order could stop the slaughter. The Terran battleship cut through their armada as if it were cutting cloth. No hesitation, no mercy. In less than 1 hour, half the fleet was gone. Drifting wrecks burned silently. Bodies floated among twisted steel. The surviving ships pulled back, desperate to escape, but even retreat was not safe. The battleship pursued with quiet precision. One by one, stragglers were hunted down, until silence returned once more. Only a handful of Dominion ships managed to flee. Their engines pushed to the limit. They carried nothing but fear and a story no one wanted to hear. A story that would echo through the Empire. The story of the first strike. Inside the Terran battleship, the human crew said nothing. There was no cheering. There was no celebration. Only quiet discipline. They knew this was only the beginning. They knew the Dominion would send more, but they also knew something greater. Fear had been planted. The human captain looked out at the burning remains. His voice was calm, almost cold. "Let them remember," he said. "Let them fear one ship. Before long they will fear many." Far away in the Dominion capital, the council chambers shook with arguments. How could one Terran ship destroy a fleet? How could humanity return after centuries? Some shouted to mobilize every resource, others whispered of surrender. No one dared speak too loudly, because deep inside, they all knew the truth. The Dominion's dominion was no longer eternal. The silence of fear had been broken, and the first strike was only the start. In the dark corners of the galaxy, the news spread faster than the fleet could travel. Slaves whispered of freedom. Rebels raised their heads. Hope flickered where there had only been despair, and all of it came from one ship, one human battleship against an empire. The galaxy trembled, for when humanity strikes, they strike to be remembered, and the first strike had only just begun. Fear in the council. The Dominion capital was a world of shining towers and endless lights. Its streets never slept, its skies filled with ships moving in perfect order. For centuries, this world was the center of power, the place where decisions shaped the fate of entire species. The Dominion Council met in a grand chamber carved from crystal and steel. Walls glowed with blue light, and the ceiling showed the galaxy like a living map. Every corner of the empire was marked, every system counted as theirs, but that night the council did not feel powerful. They felt fear. The reports came in one after another, 1,000 ships lost, fleets destroyed, patrols gone silent, all to one vessel, one Terran Battleship. The councilors shouted, their voices echoing like thunder. "This is impossible," one cried. "No ship can destroy an entire fleet." Another roared, "They are liars. The admirals are covering their incompetence." But then the survivors arrived. Broken ships limped into Dominion space, their hulls torn, their crews trembling. Captains stood before the council, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. They told the same story again and again. The Terran ship did not fight like the Dominion. It fought like something alive. Every move calculated, every strike perfect. It destroyed without mercy, without pause, without fear. The chamber fell into silence as the words sank in. A single human ship had done what no empire dared. It had humiliated the Dominion. One elder counselor rose, his voice shaking. "You all know the old tales. Though you pretend to forget them, the humans were not erased because they were weak. They were exiled because they were strong, too unpredictable, too dangerous. We feared them then, and now they return." His words sent ripples through the chamber. Some counselors nodded in grim agreement, others bared their teeth, in denial. "The humans are myths," one shouted. "They are ghosts of history, we destroyed them." But even as he shouted, his hands trembled. An admiral stepped forward, his armor scarred from recent battle. He slammed his fist against his chest. "I faced them. I saw it with my own eyes. Their ship is real. Their weapons are real. We fired. Everything, missiles, plasma, dreadnoughts, nothing worked. It was like striking a mountain with pebbles. And still it moved, calmly, deliberately, as if we were insects under its gaze." The council erupted again. Voices clashed like blades. "Send the Grand Fleet. Mobilize every world. Seal the borders. Do not panic the people." Fear and arrogance mixed together like poison. In the shadows of the chamber, a quiet figure spoke. Admiral Varrock, oldest of the Dominion's warlords. His voice was low, but it cut through the noise like a blade. "You fools. You do not understand. If one ship can do this, then there are more. The Terrans never fight alone. If they have returned, they have a plan, and when humans plan, empires fall." The chamber froze. Even the loudest voices grew silent because, deep inside, they all knew he was right. The Dominion had believed too long in its own perfection, but perfection had cracks, and through those cracks, fear crept in. One governor leaned forward, whispering to her peers, "What if the colonies hear of this? What if the slaves rise? What if the people no longer believe in our strength?" Her words carried the weight of truth. Already rumors spread like wildfire. Already oppressed worlds whispered of rebellion. Already the foundation of the Dominion trembled. The Supreme Chancellor rose from his seat, a towering figure wrapped in robes of silver. He struck the ground with his staff. "Enough," he commanded. "The Dominion is eternal. We will crush this human ship. We will burn its crew. And we will erase even the memory of humanity." His words were strong, but his eyes betrayed him. Behind the mask of power there was fear, and everyone in the chamber saw it. After the meeting ended, shadows lingered. Whispers carried through the halls. Some counselors called for greater fleets. Some secretly contacted mercenaries. Some began planning escape routes because in their hearts, they knew. The Dominion was no longer eternal. The humans had returned, and fear had come with them. Far away, in the dark of space, the Terran Battleship drifted like a phantom, its crew preparing for the next strike. Inside, the human captain looked at the star map. He marked the Dominion capital with cold eyes. "They sit in their towers and pretend to rule," he said. "They will learn soon enough. Their dominion is crumbling." And so, even before the next battle was fought, the Dominion's greatest weakness had been revealed, not in their ships, not in their armies, but in their hearts. For the council that once ruled without fear, now feared the return of mankind. The survivor's tale. The Dominion was built on victory. Its soldiers were trained to win. Its captains were taught that defeat was impossible. But now whispers of defeat spread like a disease through its fleets, and the proof came in the form of one broken ship. Crawling back from the edge of destruction, Captain Zorath had commanded the cruiser Varix. He was proud, loyal, and certain of his empire's strength. When the order came to engage the Terran Battleship, he had laughed. "It is only one ship," he told his crew. "We are the Dominion. We are eternal." But eternity ended in fire. The memory burned inside him like a wound. The first strike of the Terran Battleship had been like a God's hand. His fleet scattered, ships torn apart as if made of paper. He had given every command: attack, flank, retreat. None of it mattered. The Terran ship seemed to know his moves before he gave them. Every trap turned against him, every tactic destroyed. The Varix was hit twice. The first blast cut her shields to pieces. The second ripped her engines apart. His crew screamed as fire rushed through the decks, bodies torn from the hull into the void. He had watched his first officer sucked into nothingness. He had heard the desperate cries of young soldiers as flames consumed them. And then came the silence. The Dominion fleet was gone. Only wrecks drifted, only a few crippled ships tried to run. His Varix floated half dead, its engines shattered. Yet somehow, against all odds, it did not explode. Somehow, Zorath lived for 3 days. His ship drifted, half his crew dead, the other half broken with fear. They worked in darkness, patching what they could. Rations ran low, air thinned. But they pushed forward, because someone had to carry the message. Someone had to warn the Dominion of what had truly risen from the shadows. When Zorath finally stood before the council, he was no longer the proud captain he once was. His uniform was burned. His eyes carried the weight of nightmares. The chamber filled with nobles and generals fell silent as he entered. He bowed weakly, his voice hoarse, and then he spoke. "You do not understand," he said. "This Terran ship is not like ours. It does not fight as we fight. It fights as though it knows us. Every move we make, it already sees. Every strike we attempt, it counters. It is not strength alone that destroyed us, it is their mind." Gasps filled the chamber. Some sneered, calling him a coward. Others leaned forward, listening with pale faces. Zorath continued, his voice breaking. "We fired everything, plasma. Storms, rail cannons, missile swarms. But nothing mattered. Their shields bent but did not break. Their weapons cut through us as if we were unarmed. I saw 100 fighters fall in less than a minute. I saw dreadnoughts torn apart by beams I cannot even describe. And when they were done, they did not chase us. They did not gloat. They simply moved on, calm as death itself. One counselor hissed, "You ran, Captain Zorath. You abandoned the fight. You should have died with honor." But Zorath's eyes hardened. "I lived to bring you truth. If you do not listen, all of you will die with dishonor." The chamber erupted in argument. Some shouted for his execution. Others demanded his testimony be spread to every fleet. The Chancellor raised his staff for silence. "Speak plain, Captain," he ordered. "What are the humans after? What do they want?" Zorath lowered his head. His voice was quiet, almost broken. "They want us afraid. They want us to know that nowhere is safe. They want us to feel powerless. And Chancellor, it is working." Silence fell like a heavy curtain. For the first time, the Council could not deny the truth. The Dominion's greatest weapon, fear, was being turned against them. The humans fought not only with fire, they fought with terror. Outside, the chamber, rumors spread of Zorath's tale. Soldiers whispered in barracks. Citizens traded stories in shadowed alleys. Slaves spoke of hope, and rebels began to sharpen their blades. If one ship could do this, they whispered, what if there were more? What if the humans had returned not as ghosts but as conquerors? Back aboard the Terran Battleship, the human captain studied new reports. He knew the survivor would carry his message. He wanted it that way, because sometimes a single terrified voice does more damage than 1,000 weapons. His crew waited. For orders, he gave them calmly. Prepare the next course, he said. Fear is a weapon, and now it spreads for us. And so, while the Dominion trembled at one survivor's tale, the Terran Battleship glided silently to its next target. Each move planned, each strike chosen. The Empire thought it was hunting a ship. But in truth, it was the ship that hunted the Empire. The hidden power. The galaxy looked at the Terran Battleship as if it were a ghost, but inside that ship, men and women walked with steady steps. They were not ghosts. They were human, alive, disciplined, and ready for war. The corridors of the ship were long and silent. Every wall carried scars of past battles. Every control panel hummed with quiet power. This was no ordinary warship. It was a relic, yes, but also a miracle. It was the last masterpiece of humanity before exile. A weapon, built not only with steel but with fury, memory, and genius. At the center stood the captain, a man whose name the Dominion did not yet know. He had gray at his temples, lines of age and burden across his face, but his eyes burned with a fire that never died. When others looked into those eyes, they felt the weight of history, the weight of betrayal, the weight of humanity cast out and forgotten. He stood on the command deck, his officers around him, every one of them chosen for loyalty, skill, and unshakable will. They did not speak much. Words were unnecessary. They trusted him, they trusted the ship, and they trusted the mission. Report, the captain said quietly. His voice was calm, yet it carried like thunder through the deck. Shields stable, said one officer. Weapon banks reloaded, said another. Engines running at full capacity, added the engineer. Next target calculated, finished the navigator. The captain nodded once. Good, he said, fear is spreading. Now it is time to remind them why they were right to fear us. The ship itself was alive with secrets. Beneath its armored skin lay systems the Dominion could not even imagine. Its shields did not simply block attacks, they bent them, turning beams of energy into harmless light. Its cannons were not mere weapons. They were storms, beams so focused they cut through dreadnoughts like glass. Its missiles were hunters, guided by intelligence that thought faster than any pilot. And deep in its core, hidden even from many of its crew, lay a heart of power that no other empire possessed. The captain alone knew the truth. The ship carried the last Terran AI, an intelligence created before humanity's exile. Cold, calculating, and perfect in war. It did not feel. It did not sleep. It only fought. And now it fought for revenge. When the captain placed his hand on the command console, he felt the AI stir. Its presence brushed against his mind like a shadow. It did not speak in words. It spoke in instincts, predictions, warnings. Together, man and machine moved as one, and that was why no Dominion fleet could stand against them in the mess hall. The younger crew whispered about their mission. Some spoke of the old wars, others of the day humanity was betrayed by the Dominion. But all of them carried the same fire inside. They were not fighting for conquest. They were fighting for survival, for memory, for justice. Do you think they know how many of us remain? One asked. The others shook their heads. No, a woman answered. Let them believe it is only one ship. Let fear do our work. The captain walked among them. He heard their whispers, but said nothing. His silence was stronger than speeches. His presence alone told them everything, that this fight was not just theirs, it was humanity's. And humanity never fought halfway. Far across space, Dominion scouts searched desperately. They tried to find the Terran ship, but every time they thought they had it cornered, it was gone. Every trap they set was broken, every plan turned to ash, because the battleship did not simply fight. It thought, It moved like it knew the future. In the Dominion Council, panic grew. Some believed there were entire fleets of Terrans waiting. Others whispered that the battleship was not real at all, that it was a phantom born from their own guilt, but none could deny the truth. Wherever the Terran ship appeared, Dominion power crumbled. Colonies rebelled, soldiers lost faith, and fear spread wider than fire. Back on the Terran ship, the captain stared at the star map. Dozens of systems glowed red, the Dominion's strongest holds. He pointed at one. The crew watched quietly. "That is our next strike," he said. "Not to conquer, not to destroy, but to remind them that humanity is never weak, that humanity remembers, and that humanity always returns." The crew answered in one voice, "Yes, Captain." The battleship's engines roared to life. Stars blurred as it cut across the void. The Dominion thought it was safe in numbers, but the humans carried something greater than numbers. They carried hidden power, and soon the galaxy would see what that power truly meant. The crumbling Dominion. The Dominion had ruled for thousands of years. It called itself eternal. It believed its grip on the galaxy could never loosen. But eternity began to crack the moment the Terran Battleship appeared. At first it was only whispers, reports of fleets destroyed, admirals defeated, a single human ship tearing through armadas. The Council tried to hide the truth. They spread lies of minor uprisings. They told the people the Dominion was still, strong, but lies cannot silence fire. And the fire of fear spread faster than their words. On distant colonies, slaves stopped bowing. Workers dropped their tools and began to gather in secret. They spoke of the human ship. They called it the Phantom of Justice. They told each other that the Dominion could bleed, and if it could bleed, it could die on one mining world. A group of rebels rose. They had nothing but stolen rifles and homemade bombs, yet when the local governor called for troops, the soldiers refused to fight. They had seen the reports. They had heard the survivor's tale. They no longer believed. The Dominion was eternal, and belief was the true weapon of empire. System by system, cracks widened. Governors abandoned their posts. Whole fleets deserted. Merchants refused to pay taxes. The Council sent messages of punishment. But their threats sounded hollow because everyone now asked the same question. If one human ship can do this, how many more are coming? The Terran Battleship did not rest. It struck where the Dominion was strongest. Outposts that had never fallen. Fortresses thought unbreakable. Each one shattered in hours. The ship never lingered. It destroyed and moved on, leaving behind silence and fear. Inside the Dominion Council chambers, panic ruled. Admirals begged for reinforcements. Governors demanded protection. The Chancellor shouted for order. But even as they argued, messages poured in. Rebellion on Korath Prime. Uprising in the Zera sector. Fleet refuses. Orders at the Rim. Every report was another crack in the Empire's walls. Meanwhile, far from the Council, ordinary people began to dream. A farmer on a backwater world told his children, "The humans have returned. You will live free." A young soldier in the Dominion army whispered to his friend, "If they ask me to fight the humans, I will throw down my weapon." Hope was a disease the Dominion could not cure, and the Terran ship had unleashed it. On one captured station, a Dominion commander sat in chains. Rebels surrounded him, cheering the name of the Terrans. The commander spat, "You fools! It is only one ship." But the rebels only laughed. The Terran warning. The Dominion refused to accept death quietly, even as worlds rebelled and soldiers deserted. Even as fear spread faster than fire, the Council still clung to pride. They swore the Empire was eternal, and to prove it, they gathered their greatest force. From every corner of the galaxy, ships were summoned. Fighters, cruisers, dreadnoughts, carriers, tens of thousands filled the skies near the Dominion core, the largest fleet ever assembled, a storm of steel and fire. Enough to crush entire civilizations. They named it the Eternal Armada, and they swore it would erase the humans forever. Admirals stood proud. Governors cheered. The Council announced to the galaxy, "The Dominion still rules. We will destroy the Terran. Phantom." But hope had already shifted. Billions across the stars whispered the truth. If one ship can bring them to this, then one ship can end them too. Far away, in the dark void, the Terran Battleship approached. Its engines burned like a quiet star. Inside, the crew prepared for the greatest battle of their lives. They knew the odds, 1 against thousands, but they did not flinch, because they carried something greater than numbers. They carried humanity. On the bridge, the captain stood before the star map. The Dominion fleet glowed red, endless, suffocating. Yet his eyes were calm. "This is where they fall," he said. "Not because of us alone, but because their fear has already eaten them alive." The ship moved forward. The Dominion armada closed around it like a cage. Cannons charged, fighters swarmed, admirals shouted with confidence, "Destroy them! Leave nothing behind!" The first volleys filled the void, a storm of missiles and beams, enough to level a planet. The Terran ship vanished inside the light. Dominion officers cheered. Until the light cleared, the battleship still moved, shields burned but unbroken, weapons alive with fury. It answered the storm with its own. Beams cut through dreadnoughts like glass. Missiles tore carriers apart. Fighters fell in swarms of fire. The void turned red with wreckage. But even as the Terran ship fought, it was not only weapons that destroyed the Dominion. It was fear. Admirals hesitated. Captains disobeyed orders. Some ships broke formation and fled. Others turned on each other in panic. The perfect armada shattered before the battle even ended. For hours the fight raged. The Dominion poured everything into the storm. But the Terran battleship moved like death itself. Every strike deliberate, every motion unstoppable. When at last the guns grew silent, the eternal armada was gone. Only burning wrecks drifted in the void. The Dominion's pride lay in ruins. The galaxy watched. Every signal, every transmission carried the same sight. One human ship against an empire. And the empire lost. On the bridge of the Terran battleship, the captain gave his final order. "Open a channel," he said. His voice was calm but heavy with history. Across the galaxy, every world, every council, every soldier heard him. A human voice, clear and unshaken. "This is humanity," he began. "You said we were extinct. You said we were forgotten. But here we stand, alive, unbroken, and stronger than ever." He paused, letting the words cut deep. "We do not seek conquest. We do not seek your chains. But if you bring war to us, we will return it tenfold. Your dominion crumbled the moment we appeared, because empires built on fear cannot stand against those who do not fear you." The silence that followed was heavier than any weapon. Worlds erupted in cheers. Rebels rose with new strength. Dominion. Governors bowed their heads in despair. The message was more powerful than the battle. It was the death sentence of an empire. The captain looked once more at the wreckage, his eyes cold, but his voice steady. "Remember this day. Remember humanity. We were exiled, but we endured. We were forgotten, but we returned. And now you know. If you dare strike us again, you will not survive what comes next." The transmission ended. The Terran battleship turned slowly. Its engines flared and it vanished into the stars, leaving silence behind. But this silence was not like before. It was not the silence of power. It was the silence of fear. The Dominion's eternity was gone, and humanity's warning echoed through the galaxy. The empire had crumbled, and it all began with one ship, one captain, one people who refused to die. The Terrans had returned, and the galaxy would never forget it.